Next up is Warrior. And we start with the Prime, and it's Kargath Blade Fist. I remember this guy. It's a 4 mana 4/4 rush, so pretty good. You know, you're not too unhappy to play this. It's pretty decent stats and effect. And as usual, Death Rattle shuffle the Prime into your deck. What's the Prime? It's an 8 mana 10/10 rush. Whenever this attacks and kills a minion, gain 10 armor. That's a lot of armor. And it's a removal, and it is amazing, right? This is a lot of value for one card. This card is pretty good. It's gonna be run in most warrior decks. It's very good at keeping you on the board. It's very good finisher. It's great control tool. This card is an all-star. It does a lot. Very good. It's a 5-star card. It is that good. Obviously insane in Arena. I mean, this card, however, oh boy. Bulwark of Azinoth. 3 mana weapon, 1/4. Whenever your hero would take damage, this loses 1 durability instead. So, really bad against mage? Like, if your opponent plays an arcane missiles, you have nothing on the board. I mean, this weapon's just gone. You know, you lose 2 charges whenever you attack a minion. So it's really bad for that, even though you take no damage. Like dealing 1 damage to a minion, like 2 charges are gone. So this is an anti-combo card. Like, that's the only use I see for it, right? And as that, it is pretty effective at delaying your opponent, especially if they don't have if they don't want waste their limited amount of damage. Especially if it's something like combo paladin like Holy Wrath. I know that's rotating, but it's an example, right? Like if that deck is forced to spend its resources getting rid of this card, like it may just not have enough time to win the game, right? So this is a very good tool for warriors to have, but it's not a meta card. I mean, it is definitely a meta dependent card, but it's not a card that's gonna create the meta, right? It's just anti-meta, if that makes sense. It's anti-combo, that's for sure. Anti, it's not hentai, but you know what I mean. So it's good in that sense, but you're gonna feel pretty sad if this is one of your only legendaries that you open. So sorry if that's the case. And don't pick this in Arena. Just don't. It's not worth it. Now we have Warmaul Challenger. 3 mana 1/10. What? Battlecry, choose an enemy minion, battle it to the death. So basically they attack each other until one of them dies. So this is really good against 1/1s, good against 2/1s, good against 3/1s. When the enemy minion has more health though, it starts to get a bit dodgy. Oh, I like my camera here. Okay, it seems to be alright now. Yeah. So yeah, this is a great control card, right? Like it's some removal. You can remove some key minions because you can choose the minion even if your opponent has taunt. You get to battle it still. So pretty good tool to have. It's not something you would think of as an auto include in most decks, but again, it is a meta dependent card, and it's another good tool to have. So, okay, it's pretty good for warriors to have access to something like this. and it could be decent in arena. You never know, especially if you have cards that care about damage minions. Like this expansion has some of those cards, and this can help you trigger them. So synergy. Okay, now we have Bladestorm. 3 mana spell, deal 1 damage to all minions, repeat until one dies. So only one big minion on the board, it dies. One big minion and one small minion. This card is terrible, but it has a great upside. And as warriors, you have a few tools to get rid of small minions. So it's a really decent control tool. Situational, but very good in the hands of a skilled player. This is a skill testing card, and it's a very good one at that. It can be really strong. So very situational, has a lot of setup requirements, but the payoff is good. Next up we have Blood Boil Brute, 7 mana 6/8 rush, costs 1 less for its damaged minion. So it counts your minions, counts your opponent minions. Pretty decent card. I mean, in arena it's really good, right? Even in standard, it can, like if you build a deck around the self-damaging, like there's some of that right now with Galakron Warrior, this can be slotted into that already existing synergy. You can get it pretty cheap. Like if you get this even for 5, it's a pretty good minion, right? Just a 2 mana discount, and it suddenly becomes pretty good. So I can see this being run in a few variants of Warrior, and it's an awesome arena card. Definitely a good card. Next up we have Corsair Cash. Draw a weapon for 2 mana and give it +1/+1. So obviously, if you ever need bulwark for something, this is an excellent way to guarantee you have it for that key turn. With other weapons, it's still decent, but it's a bit of a tempo loss. Like this is probably better in a control tool, and for a very specific weapon, like it may be good enough in the War Axe, but ideally I think you're looking for something a bit more impactful. You can probably use this in Pirate Warrior, just like for the Arcanite Reaper. It may be good enough, even though you give up tempo. Like this isn't something you would play on 2. Like this is something you're trying to finish off the game. You draw this, get your weapon guaranteed, and then are able to swing 3 times. That's powerful. But yeah, it's a very conditional card. In arena, like it filters your deck a bit. Like if you're a warrior, you want at least 2 or 3 weapons in arena, so this can be an okay card but nothing too game breaking. Even though, I mean, if you have enough health for it, it's great at clearing out minions for your board for like 1 card, so there's that. But overall, it's an average card. This, however, is a very interesting minion. It's a Scrap Golem, 5 mana 4/5 taunt. Death Rattle, gain armor equal to this minion's attack. So it's a mech. So thankfully, Dr. Boom is rotating and all the mech synergies. Otherwise, this would be quite annoying, right? I mean, even more armor to that already very annoying archetype. But we don't need to worry about any of that. We can just evaluate the card by itself, and it's a pretty solid card. you know, 5 mana, 4/5, gain 4 armor, taunt. So it's a taunt, you can buff it, you can discover it, you can hand buff it more than buff it, but it's pretty solid, right? I mean, it may be a bit too slow for standard, but it's definitely a great arena card. Like, it's not as good as mechanical yet, yeah, actually, because for it's 1 more mana, so it's not very high power, but it can keep you in the game if you have a slower deck. It's annoying, it's something your opponent has to deal with, and it's a rotten apple bomb basically, right? In standard you're okay playing apple bomb, but I mean in arena, in standard you're not as okay, unless you really need to get to the late game. Then it becomes playable, not very exciting, but playable. Okay, let's talk about a much more exciting card. This is Bone Chewer Raider. 3 mana, 3/3. Battle cry: if there is a damage minion, anyone, gain +1/+1 and rush. So we all know how good the 4/4 rusher is, the goblin, in the paladin mech deck. This is pretty much the same, with a equally easy to trigger effect. So if aggro warrior, you know, the self-damaging warrior remains a staple, this can definitely find a room there, and it's a pretty good rush tool, pretty good card overall. It's pretty good still in arena, because usually there are damage minions, because people tend to value trade. That's how usually you win games, so this can punish that real heavily. So all in all, pretty good card. Very good card. And then we have Imprisoned Gunarg. 1 mana 2/2 dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, equip a 3/2 axe. So, I mean, pretty powerful card, right? You have the axe that costs 3, and it's a 3/2, and you get a 2/2 body early on in the game. I think this is a pretty good card. It's an excellent arena card, for sure. It may even see play in some standard for redundancy. You know, it's damage. You don't like to draw this very late, but if you get this turn 1, you can get a pretty good setup, right? Really strong card. It's very strong in arena and good enough for standard, I believe. Awesome card. And finally, you have Sword and Board. 1 mana spell, deal 2 damage to a minion, gain 2 armor. Honestly, I don't think this card does enough to warrant the card slot, right? Like, at least in standard, yeah, it's not powerful enough to warrant a card slot. Like, you probably want more flexible removal, like Slam. Slam gets you a card. I mean, 2 armor is not gonna make that much of a difference, whereas potential card draw might. And you always got to look at the potential of a card, and this card does not seem to have much. Like, it's meta dependent. Like, if you really need to remove something on turn 1, you play this card, but you're never gonna feel too happy about having it unless it's exactly for that turn 1 play. And that's it for Warrior. So Warrior got some pretty good tools for the self-damaging Warrior, for Galakron Warrior. So that's still gonna be a thing, and I think that is fine. It's a pretty okay deck. Like, it's not too oppressive. You know what their game plan is. You can play around it somewhat. So there are definitely more oppressive decks. So I'm happy with that. And you also got some pretty interesting control tools. So pretty good. Pretty good expansion for Warrior, I'd say.